4 Apache widows survived the fire, but the hunt had only just begun. The early morning sun stretched across the quiet Apache village, painting the mountains in soft shades of orange and gold. The village was small, tucked between rolling hills and thick forests, where nature seemed to guard it from the rest of the world. The air was crisp and clean, filled with the smell of pine and the faint smoke from morning fires where families were cooking their first meals of the day. In this peaceful setting, 4 women moved through the village with quiet determination, each carrying the weight of loss and the strength that comes from surviving tragedy. These women were known in the village as the widows of brave men who had given their lives defending their families and their land. Their husbands had fallen in recent conflicts that had swept through the region, leaving their wives and children to carry on alone. Yet the widows were far from broken. They had learned that sorrow could coexist with courage, and that grief could transform into quiet, unyielding strength. Each of them bore her own scars, both visible and invisible, but they found comfort and courage in one another's presence. Together, they had become a family within a family, supporting each other in ways that only those who had faced great loss could truly understand. The first widow, Nayeli, was the eldest of the group. Her hair, once the color of midnight, was now streaked with silver, though it did nothing to diminish the sharpness of her eyes. She had always been calm and thoughtful, the one who could see the bigger picture when emotions ran high. Nayeli was known for her wisdom, and the younger widows often turned to her when they faced difficult decisions. She had lost her husband 3 years ago, and though the pain never fully left her, she had learned to live with it. Nayeli carried herself with quiet dignity, walking through the village with a steady pace, her eyes scanning the horizon as if expecting the unexpected. Then there was Ayana, whose name meant eternal bloom. She was younger than Nayeli, with dark hair that fell in thick waves down her back. Ayana had a fire in her heart that could not be dimmed. She had always been passionate, fiercely protective of her family, and unafraid to speak her mind. Her husband had died in a skirmish when she was barely 25, leaving her to care for their 2 young children. Despite the heavy burden, Ayana never allowed despair to consume her. She moved with energy and determination, tending to her household while also helping others in the village whenever she could. Her laughter, though rare, was like sunlight breaking through clouds, bringing warmth to those around her. The third widow, Sani, was quiet and observant. She often seemed lost in thought, her dark eyes reflecting a depth of understanding beyond her years. Sani's husband had been a gentle soul, and his loss had left a hollow space in her life. She spent her days caring for her elderly mother and her younger siblings, taking on responsibilities that would have overwhelmed many. Sani had a way of noticing small details others overlooked, and this gift made her invaluable to her friends. She could sense danger in the wind, read the signs in the animals' movements, and feel the subtle shifts in the village's mood. Her insight gave the widows a sense of security, even when the world around them felt uncertain. Finally, there was Tayanita, whose spirit was as untamed as the rivers that ran through the mountains. She had a wild streak that made her both admired and feared. Tayanita had faced unimaginable hardship when she lost her husband in a raid, but she refused to let fear dictate her life. She had an energy that was contagious, inspiring those around her to act rather than despair. Tayanita's laughter was loud and fearless, a declaration that life could not be taken from her entirely. She often led the group in physical tasks, climbing hills or carrying heavy loads without hesitation, proving that strength could be both practical and symbolic. That morning, as the village slowly came to life, the 4 widows gathered near a small stream at the edge of the settlement. They were there to fetch water for their families, but also to talk, to share news, and to reaffirm the bond that had grown between them over years of shared hardship. The stream gurgled softly, its water sparkling under the sunlight. Birds flitted through the trees, singing songs that seemed almost celebratory, unaware of the sorrow and resilience that defined the lives of the humans below. The widows filled their clay jars, careful not to spill a drop, all the while speaking in low, measured tones. Naomi spoke first, her voice calm and steady. She reminded the others of the importance of preparing for the days ahead. "We must always be ready," she said, "not just for ourselves, but for those who depend on us. Life is fragile, but we are stronger than we know." Her words carried weight, as they always did, grounding the group in a sense of purpose. Iana nodded vigorously, her dark eyes bright with intensity. "I know," she said. "We have survived so much already. We cannot let fear control us. We have children to raise, families to protect, and a village that needs us. We are alive, and that is already a victory." Her words were passionate, almost like a spark ready to ignite a fire. The others could feel the strength in her conviction, a reminder that courage often comes from refusing to give up, even when the world seems against you. Sandy remained quiet for a moment, looking at the water flowing past her feet. She had a habit of thinking deeply before speaking, weighing each word carefully. "We have learned from loss," she said finally. "Every hardship has taught us something. Every day we survive, we grow stronger, and together we are unstoppable. Alone, we are vulnerable. Together, we are a force." Her words were measured, but they carried a weight that resonated with the others. In Sandy's calm wisdom, there was a sense of inevitability. The widows would endure, no matter what came. Tayanita laughed softly, a sound that seemed to echo across the hills. "Then let's be unstoppable," she said, "because I refuse to live in fear. Let the world throw whatever it wants at us. We will meet it with fire in our hearts and courage in our hands. If anyone doubts what widows can do, they will soon learn." Her boldness brought smiles to the others' faces, reminding them that hope could be as strong as any weapon. The widows finished filling their jars and began the walk back to their homes. Along the way, they passed neighbors who greeted them warmly, offering small nods of respect. Even in a village accustomed to hardship, people recognized strength when they saw it. The widows carried more than just water. They carried the quiet authority of those who had faced life and death and come through intact. Their presence was a statement. Life would continue, no matter the losses suffered. As they walked, the widows spoke of practical matters: food for the children, repairs for homes, and plans for planting crops. But beneath these conversations ran a deeper current of unspoken understanding. Each of them knew that danger could appear at any moment, that the peace they enjoyed was delicate and could be shattered. Yet they did not dwell on fear. Instead, they focused on what they could control: their actions, their courage, and their commitment to one another. By the time they reached their homes, the sun had risen higher, warming the village and illuminating the beauty that surrounded them. Smoke curled lazily from chimneys. Children laughed and ran through the streets, and the distant mountains stood as silent witnesses to the lives unfolding below. The widows paused at their doorsteps, taking a moment to breathe and to observe the world they were part of. Though loss had touched them deeply, they had survived, and that survival was a triumph in itself. Inside, they tended to their families, preparing meals, mending clothes, and offering words of comfort and encouragement. Each small act was a declaration of resilience, a way of saying that life, though fragile, was still worth living. The widows worked tirelessly, often putting the needs of others before their own, yet they never lost sight of their own strength. They were the quiet pillars of the village, supporting not only their families but the community as a whole. As the day drew on, the four women sat together in the shade of a large tree, sharing stories and laughter. They recalled memories of their husbands, speaking of their bravery and kindness, keeping their spirits alive through memory. Tears came occasionally, but they were never alone in them. Each tear shed was met with understanding, a hand on a shoulder, a comforting word, a shared look that said, We are in this together. It was this bond, forged through loss and hardship, that gave them the courage to face whatever the future might hold. Little did they know that this peace, fragile as it was, would soon be threatened. The morning had passed with the gentle rhythm of life, but the winds were changing, carrying whispers of danger. For now, though, the widows remained unaware, content in their shared strength, their courage, and the quiet beauty of the world around them. They were survivors, and they would face the future as they always had, together, unbroken and ready for whatever challenges awaited. The morning had been quiet and calm, with the soft glow of sunlight spilling over the hills and the village slowly waking to another day. The four widows, Nayeli, Yana, Sani, and Tayanita, had begun their daily routines, unaware that the peace they had worked so hard to maintain was about to be shattered. The air was dry, and the wind carried the scent of smoke from distant forests, but at first it was subtle enough to go unnoticed. Birds continued their songs, and children ran through the streets, blissfully unaware of the danger creeping closer. It started with a faint smell, almost like burning leaves drifting across the village. Nayeli was the first to notice it. Her eyes narrowed as she looked toward the horizon. "Do you smell that?" she asked, her voice steady but tinged with concern. The others paused and sniffed the air, realizing that the faint scent was indeed smoke. At first, they thought it might be a small fire somewhere nearby, perhaps one that could be controlled, but a growing unease settled in their hearts. The wind was shifting, and the smoke was getting thicker by the minute. By midday, the fire had grown far beyond a simple spark. Flames licked the edges of the surrounding forests, fed by dry leaves and a strong wind that blew unpredictably. What had begun as a small, almost unnoticed danger quickly became an unstoppable force. The sky, once blue and calm, turned orange and gray as smoke rolled in from all sides. Panic spread through the village, but the widows, though frightened, knew they had to act quickly. Their survival depended on their ability to remain calm and work together. Yana was the first to spring into action. Her children were playing near the edge of the village, and without hesitation, she ran to gather them, pulling them close and shielding them from the smoke. "Stay low," she called, her voice strong. She instructed them to cover their mouths with cloths and to follow her lead. Tayanita, seeing the fire spreading rapidly, helped other children and villagers move to safer areas, her energy and courage contagious. The fire was relentless, but so was their determination to protect the innocent. Sani's eyes scanned the landscape, looking for safe paths and ways to control the chaos. She noticed that the fire was moving faster in certain areas, especially where the dry brush was thick. "We must avoid the northern hill," she shouted, pointing to the direction where the flames were climbing quickly. Nayeli gathered supplies, water, blankets, and anything that could help protect their families, and coordinated with the other widows to guide the villagers to safer ground. They moved swiftly, their decisions precise, as if they had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in their minds. Despite their careful planning, the fire was overwhelming. It crackled and roared as it consumed trees, homes, and fields. Sparks flew through the air like dangerous fireflies, landing on rooftops and dry grass. The widows felt the heat on their faces, felt it in their lungs with each desperate breath, but they refused to give in to fear. Every second mattered. Every decision could mean the difference between life and death. They were determined to survive, but they also carried the heavy responsibility of ensuring that others survived alongside them. The village's animals were in a state of panic, adding to the chaos. Horses neighed loudly, attempting to flee, while goats and chickens scattered in every direction. Tayanita ran through the confusion, guiding frightened animals to safety, her strength and fearlessness evident to all who saw her. Yana and Nayeli worked together to herd people and livestock toward a clearing that was less threatened by the flames. Sanny's careful observations helped them avoid pockets of fire that could have trapped the villagers, saving countless lives in the process. As the afternoon sun began to dip toward the horizon, the fire's fury increased. The wind shifted suddenly, sending flames toward the village like a wave crashing against a rocky shore. Homes that had stood for decades were reduced to ash within minutes. The widows saw neighbors' houses catch fire, and though they wanted to help everyone, they knew their first duty was to protect their families and each other. Naomi made quick decisions, prioritizing who needed immediate evacuation and who could follow a safer route out of the danger zone. Every choice weighed heavily on her heart, but she acted without hesitation, knowing hesitation could cost lives. In the midst of the chaos, the four widows never lost sight of each other. They moved as a single unit, each playing to her strengths. Naomi's calm wisdom guided their decisions. Yana's fiery courage inspired action. Sanny's keen observation ensured safety, and Tayanita's unstoppable energy rallied those around her. Together, they became a force that even the fire could not break. The villagers began to follow their lead, trusting the widows' experience and determination. Step by step, they navigated through smoke and flames, reaching the open clearing that promised relative safety. When they finally reached the clearing, they were exhausted, their clothes singed and their skins scorched from the heat. The fire had left its mark on everything in its path. Trees were blackened, houses reduced to rubble, and the once familiar landscape was now unrecognizable. Yet, amid the devastation, the widows gathered their families and neighbors, offering comfort and reassurance. "We are alive," Naomi said, her voice firm. "And as long as we are alive, there is hope. We will rebuild. We will survive." Her words carried weight, reminding everyone that survival was just the beginning, and that courage and unity could overcome even the most terrifying trials. As night fell, the glow of the fire lit the sky in a haunting display. Sparks rose like fireflies against the dark backdrop, and the smell of smoke lingered in the air, filling every breath with the reminder of what had occurred. The widows huddled together, their children and neighbors around them, sharing stories and reassurances to keep spirits strong. Though exhausted, they remained vigilant, knowing that fires often shifted unpredictably and that danger was not entirely over. They had survived the first wave, but the memory of the flames would stay with them forever. In the hours that followed, the widows took turns keeping watch, ensuring that embers did not reignite and that no one wandered too close to dangerous areas. Yana whispered softly to her children, telling them that bravery was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. Tayanita moved quietly among the families, lending strength wherever it was needed, while Sanny observed the land with her sharp eyes, noting every change in the wind and smoke. Naomi coordinated efforts to gather water and food, planning for the long night ahead. Through it all, the villagers began to realize the extraordinary resilience of these four women. They had led the evacuation, provided guidance, and inspired hope when despair could have easily taken over. Each widow had faced her own fears and losses, yet together they had forged a path to safety for everyone. Their courage was contagious, and even the youngest children felt the strength emanating from them. The widows were no longer just survivors. They were leaders, protectors, and symbols of resilience for the entire village. By the early hours of the next morning, the fire had finally begun to die down, leaving behind a charred and devastated landscape. The villagers emerged from the clearing to assess the damage, their hearts heavy with sorrow for the homes and possessions lost. Yet, amid the blackened earth and fallen trees, there was a glimmer of hope. The widows stood together, their faces marked with soot and exhaustion, but their eyes still bright with determination. They had survived what many thought impossible, and in doing so, they had proven that courage, unity, and love could withstand even the fiercest flames. As the sun rose higher, revealing the full scope of the destruction, the widows gathered their families and neighbors once more. They began to organize efforts to recover what they could, sharing supplies and comforting those who had lost everything. The task ahead was enormous, but the four widows had faced death itself and emerged stronger. Their bond, tested by fire and loss, had only deepened. They knew that while survival was the first step, the real challenge, rebuilding their lives and seeking answers about what had caused such devastation, was just beginning. And in that moment, standing amidst the ruins of the village, the four Apache widows made a silent vow. They had faced the fire together and survived, but they would not allow fear or tragedy to define their future. Whatever came next, they would meet it as they had always met life, with courage, unity, and an unbreakable spirit. The hunt, the search for truth, and the protection of their people was only just beginning, but they were ready. The fire had taken much, but it had not broken them. And that, they knew, was the most important victory of all. The morning after the fire was quiet in a way that felt almost unnatural. The village was a shadow of its former self. Blackened trees stood like charred skeletons against the horizon, and the remains of homes were scattered across the hills like broken toys. Smoke still rose from smoldering debris, carrying with it the bitter scent of loss. The villagers moved carefully among the ruins, some clutching what little they could salvage, others simply staring in stunned silence. But amid the devastation, four widows, Nayeli, Ayana, Sani, and Tayanita, stood together, determined not to allow despair to rule their lives. It had become clear that the fire, while natural in some ways, may not have been entirely accidental. Strange footprints were noticed near the edge of the forest, signs of human activity that did not belong. Yana's sharp eyes caught movement that seemed too deliberate to be caused by chance. Tayanita, ever fearless, suggested that someone might have intentionally started the fire to harm the village. Nayeli and Sani exchanged a look, understanding the implication without a word. Their survival was not only about the fire, they were now facing an enemy they had yet to see. The widows gathered in the clearing where they had taken refuge the night before, their children and neighbors nearby. They spoke quietly but urgently, forming a plan. Nayeli's voice was calm but firm. "We cannot act recklessly," she said, "but we must find out the truth. We need to know if this was truly an accident or something more." Sani nodded, adding, "We know these lands. We know the signs. If someone came through here with ill intent, we will find them. And we will stop them before they hurt us again." The determination in their words gave the villagers a sense of hope and purpose. Their hunt began cautiously. The four women split tasks based on their strengths. Nayeli would organize the information gathered from villagers, noting any suspicious behavior or unusual events from the past days. Ayana, driven by fire in her heart, would scout the surrounding hills and forests, seeking clues that might reveal the perpetrators. Sani's keen observation skills made her perfect for tracking footprints, disturbed vegetation, and other subtle signs in the burnt land. Tayanita, with her energy and boldness, would go where danger was greatest, ready to confront anyone or anything that threatened them. As they moved through the charred landscape, the widows discovered signs that confirmed their suspicions. Burnt wood and ash were scattered in patterns that suggested the fire had been guided, not random. Certain areas had been ignited faster than others, leaving clear trails as if someone had directed the flames deliberately. Sani examined the ground, noting footprints partially obscured by ash. "These tracks are fresh," she whispered. "Someone came through here recently." They knew the land well. Her voice carried both fear and excitement, fear for what it meant, and excitement because it meant they had a lead. Ayana led the group up a ridge overlooking the village, scanning the distant hills for anything unusual. The wind carried a faint scent of smoke that was different from the fire's remnants. "Someone is out there," she said, her eyes narrowing, "and they may still be nearby." Tayanita clenched her fists. "Then we will find them," she said firmly. "We will not let fear take control. If they think they can harm our people and escape, they are wrong." The courage in her words was a rallying point for the others, reminding them that the hunt was not just about revenge. It was about protecting their village, their families, and their way of life. Over the next few days, the widows moved like shadows through the burnt forest, following trails that others might have missed. They questioned travelers passing through the area, listening carefully to stories that might contain hidden clues. Each piece of information was weighed and analyzed, and slowly, a picture began to form. They realized that the fire was not an isolated act but part of a larger threat. Someone was targeting their village, perhaps for reasons they did not yet understand. This knowledge made the widows more vigilant, and they redoubled their efforts to protect their people while uncovering the truth. As the hunt progressed, the widows encountered both allies and obstacles. Some villagers were skeptical of their leadership, believing that women could not take on such dangerous tasks. Yet, as they witnessed the widows' courage and intelligence, even the most doubtful began to follow their lead. Children helped carry supplies, men assisted with moving livestock, and other women supported them in any way they could. Together, the community became stronger, united under the guidance of the four widows who refused to let tragedy define them. The widows also faced direct threats. One evening, as they scouted near the forest's edge, shadows moved among the trees. Tayanita stepped forward fearlessly, holding a sturdy staff in her hands. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice echoing through the quiet woods. The shadows retreated, but it was a reminder that danger was real and persistent. The women learned to move cautiously, always alert, yet never letting fear slow them down. Their vigilance became a part of daily life, a constant reminder that survival required both courage and careful planning. Despite the constant tension, there were moments of quiet reflection that strengthened their resolve. Around small fires at night, they shared stories of the past, of their husbands, and of the lives they had led before tragedy struck. These stories were bittersweet, reminding them of what they had lost, but also giving them the courage to face the present. Yana would speak passionately about her dreams for her children, while Nayeli shared wisdom drawn from years of hardship. Sani would note the lessons they could learn from the land, and Tayanita would inspire laughter even in the darkest hours. Together, these moments of connection reminded them why the hunt mattered, not for vengeance alone, but for the future of their village and families. As the days passed, the widows' efforts began to bear fruit. Patterns emerged, and they discovered traces of the people responsible for the fire. They noticed signs of recent activity, broken branches, hidden paths, and even discarded tools. Each clue brought them closer to understanding who had tried to harm their village and why. Nayeli carefully documented everything, forming a clear strategy for what they would do next. "We have the knowledge now," she said one evening. "We can plan our next move. We are ready." Her words carried a quiet authority, a reassurance to the others that their efforts had not been in vain. The hunt also strengthened the bond between the widows. They had always been close, but facing danger together on a daily basis deepened their trust and reliance on one another. Each woman knew that the others had her back, no matter what. Jana's bravery encouraged Nayeli to act more decisively. Sani's keen observation kept Tayanita grounded. Tayanita's boldness inspired Jana to take risks she might not have otherwise, and Nayeli's wisdom guided them all, ensuring that their actions were thoughtful and effective. Together, they were not just survivors, they were a team capable of extraordinary things. By the end of the week, the widows had mapped the area thoroughly, identified potential suspects, and gathered enough evidence to confront the threat. They realized that the fire was not just a natural disaster, but a deliberate attack meant to weaken their village and intimidate its people. The hunt had transformed from a search for answers into a mission to protect their home, reclaim their strength, and ensure that justice was served. Their determination was unshakable, and even in the face of danger, their spirits remained strong. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of red and purple, the widows stood together at the edge of the forest. The fire had left scars on the land, but it had also revealed their own strength. "We know who they are now," Naeli said quietly, her eyes scanning the horizon, "and we will not let them harm anyone else." Jana placed a hand on her shoulder, nodding firmly. "We will protect our people," she said. "We have survived so much already. Nothing will stop us now." Sani and Tayanita echoed the sentiment, their resolve as strong as iron. In that moment, the widows understood that the hunt was more than a search for those responsible. It was a test of their courage, intelligence, and unity. They had faced fear, chaos, and loss, yet they had emerged stronger. The hunt had brought them clarity and purpose, and they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The fire had taken much, but it had not broken them. The journey was far from over, but the four Apache widows now knew that together, they could overcome any obstacle and protect the people and land they loved. The days following the fire were some of the hardest the village had ever faced. The landscape was scarred, homes had been lost, and a deep sense of uncertainty hung in the air. Yet the four widows, Naeli, Jana, Sani, and Tayanita, refused to let despair take hold. They had survived the flames, faced the unknown, and now had begun the hunt for those responsible. But as their search expanded, it became clear that the challenge ahead was more complicated than they had imagined. They were not only facing hidden enemies, they would also need allies to stand a chance against the threat. Word of the fire and the widows' courage spread quickly. Villagers from nearby settlements, hearing of the bravery of these four women, began to offer their support. Farmers brought extra food, scouts volunteered to help track unusual activity, and elders shared stories and advice from years of experience in navigating the land. The widows welcomed this help, recognizing that no matter how strong they were, the danger ahead could not be faced alone. Their leadership was now extending beyond their own village, reaching into the surrounding communities that were willing to stand with them. Yet not everyone was supportive. Some villagers doubted the widows' ability to lead such a dangerous search. "Women cannot fight fire and enemies alike," one elder had whispered, shaking his head. Another had suggested that the widows should focus only on rebuilding their homes and caring for their families. But the four women ignored the skepticism. Naeli, calm and measured, reminded everyone that strength came in many forms. "Leadership is not about gender," she said firmly. "It is about courage, wisdom, and the will to act. We have all three." Her words were not meant to boast, they were a statement of fact. Slowly, even the doubters began to acknowledge their determination and competence. The widows' strategy became clear. They needed to find the perpetrators, understand their motives, and prevent any future harm. Each woman continued to play her role. Naeli coordinated the efforts, keeping careful records of what they discovered and planning their next moves. Jana led scouting missions into the surrounding hills, searching for tracks, disturbed ground, and other signs of human activity. Sani, with her keen observation skills, followed subtle clues in the forest, examining broken branches, footprints, and even the patterns of smoke to piece together what had happened. Tayanita, fearless and bold, confronted the unknown directly, ready to face any danger that might come their way. One afternoon, as they scouted near a ridge overlooking the burnt village, they noticed movement in the distance. Shadows flickered between the trees, and there was the faint sound of voices. Tayanita gripped her staff, and Ayana's eyes narrowed, scanning for details. Sani crouched low, her sharp eyes noting every detail, the way the branches were bent, footprints partially hidden by ash, and even the smell of smoke different from the wildfire. Naeli, standing slightly back, observed them all, planning the safest approach. "We must be careful," she whispered. "We cannot let them see us until we understand who they are and what they want." The others nodded, following her lead with silent agreement. As they moved closer, they discovered that the shadows were a group of outsiders, men who had been moving cautiously through the forest. The widows hid behind trees, observing quietly. The men carried tools and supplies, suggesting they were responsible for more than just the accidental fire. They were deliberate in their movements, and it became clear that these were the people who had threatened the village. The widows now had confirmation. The fire had been set intentionally. Their hunt was no longer only about uncovering the truth. It was about protecting their homes, families, and the entire community from deliberate harm. The widows decided to approach cautiously, seeking allies among others in the area to strengthen their position. They returned to nearby villages, sharing their findings and asking for support. Scouts, farmers, and even travelers offered their help, impressed by the widows' courage and strategic thinking. Some of these allies were skilled in tracking and combat, while others offered supplies and shelter. With each new supporter, the widows grew stronger, more confident, and better prepared to confront the threat directly. Their hunt had evolved into a coordinated effort that involved multiple communities, all united by the will to defend what was theirs. Despite their growing alliance, challenges remained. Some outsiders were hostile, spreading rumors about the widows or attempting to undermine their authority. "Let the men deal with it," one said mockingly, trying to sow doubt, but the widows refused to be distracted. Naeli reminded everyone that strength was not measured by size or gender, but by courage, intelligence, and the ability to act decisively. "We have faced the fire together," she said. "We have survived the impossible. We will face this together as well. Those who doubt us will see what we can do." Her words inspired those around her, reinforcing the unity and determination that had been building among their allies. As the widows prepared for the next stage of their hunt, they trained and planned carefully. Yana taught others how to move silently through the forest, track footprints, and read subtle signs in the environment. Sani shared her methods for noticing details that others might overlook, from the way birds reacted to the presence of humans to the patterns in smoke and wind. Tayanita encouraged courage and initiative, leading exercises that tested the villagers' endurance and resolve. Naeli oversaw it all, ensuring that every effort was coordinated and that no one acted recklessly. Together, they created a team that could face danger with intelligence, strength, and unity. Their efforts soon bore fruit. Information gathered from allies revealed that the men responsible for the fire were part of a group seeking to intimidate the village and control the surrounding land. They had deliberately set the fire to weaken the community and discourage resistance. With this knowledge, the widows could plan their next steps with precision. They would confront the threat not out of revenge, but to protect their homes and ensure the safety of their people. The hunt had become a mission with purpose, and the widows were more determined than ever to see it through. During the days that followed, the widows led small groups into the surrounding hills and forests, observing, tracking, and gathering intelligence. They encountered traps and signs of preparation by the outsiders, but their careful planning allowed them to avoid danger. They learned to read the land in new ways, noticing subtle changes in vegetation, disturbed soil, and the behavior of animals as signs of nearby activity. Every step brought them closer to understanding the enemy, and every success reinforced their confidence and strengthened their leadership. In the evenings, the widows gathered with their allies to share findings and plan the next moves. Around small fires, they discussed strategies, assessed risks, and encouraged one another. Stories of bravery and resilience were shared, inspiring even the youngest members of the community. Children and adults alike learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. The widows' leadership extended beyond their own village, touching every person who had joined their effort. Together, they formed a network of support, prepared to face danger as one. One night, as stars sparkled in the clear sky above, the widows and their allies gathered in a hidden clearing to finalize their plan. They knew the outsiders would return, seeking to continue their campaign of intimidation. Naeli's voice was calm but resolute. "We have the knowledge, the allies, and the strength," she said. "Now we must act with precision and courage. We will protect our people, defend our land, and ensure that no harm comes again. Together, we are unstoppable." The others nodded, their faces reflecting determination, trust, and a quiet pride in the unity they had built. The widows understood that this moment would test everything they had learned. The fire had been the first trial, showing them their own resilience. The hunt had taught them strategy, observation, and patience. Now, with allies at their side, they were ready to face the enemy directly. The challenges ahead were real, but the four women had grown stronger than ever, and their bond was unbreakable. They had learned to lead, to inspire, and to act decisively. They had turned tragedy into strength and fear into determination. As the first light of dawn touched the hills, the widows prepared to move toward the enemy's location. Their allies were ready, supplies gathered, and strategies mapped. Each woman knew her role and trusted the others to perform theirs. Together, they were not only fighting for survival, they were defending their community, their families, and the future of their village. The fire had left scars, but it had also forged leaders from those who had endured it. The widows had faced loss, danger, and doubt, and now they were ready to face the ultimate test. And so, with courage in their hearts, clarity in their minds, and unity guiding their every step, the four Apache widows led their allies into the hills. The hunt that had begun with tragedy was now a mission of purpose. Allies had been found, enemies identified, and the strength of community reaffirmed. The widows had proven that even in the face of unimaginable hardship, resilience, courage, and unity could triumph. The next chapter awaited, and they were ready to face it together, unbroken and unwavering. The morning air was crisp and filled with tension as the four widows, Naeli, Ayana, Sani, and Tayanita, led their allies toward the final stage of their mission. The hills and forests, once so familiar, now felt like a landscape of strategy and vigilance. The fire had left scars, but it had also taught the widows and their village the meaning of courage and resilience. They knew the time had come to confront those responsible for the destruction, to bring justice, and to reclaim the peace and safety of their homes. Every step they took was measured, every movement deliberate, and every decision guided by the wisdom they had gained from weeks of observation, planning, and preparation. The group moved silently through the forest, their senses alert to any sign of movement. Birds had grown quiet, as if sensing the tension that hung in the air. Naeli led the procession, her calm presence giving strength to the others. Behind her, Ayana scanned the trees and hills, ready to act at a moment's notice. Sani followed closely, noting footprints, broken branches, and any disturbance in the environment that might reveal the enemy's location. Tayanita brought up the rear, her boldness ensuring that no one could surprise them from behind. Together, they were more than four women. They were a unified force, carrying the hopes of their village and the strength of their community. As they neared the location where the outsiders had been observed, the widows spotted signs that confirmed their suspicions. Broken branches, trampled grass, and discarded tools indicated recent activity. The footprints they had been tracking for days led directly to a small, hidden camp nestled between two ridges. From this vantage point, the widows could see the men who had started the fire. They were busy with preparations, unaware that the four women and their allies were closing in. The moment of confrontation had arrived, and every widow knew that courage and careful planning would be their greatest weapons. Nayeli spoke first, quietly addressing the group. "We will act carefully. We are not here to act recklessly, but to ensure that justice is done. We know who they are and we know what they have done. Today, we will stop them and we will protect our people." Her words were calm, yet carried a weight that commanded respect. The allies nodded, understanding that their success depended not on force alone, but on strategy, unity, and courage. Every person in the group felt the gravity of the moment, but also the confidence inspired by the widow's leadership. The plan was simple but effective. Sani and a small group of scouts would approach from one side, observing and reporting any movement or reaction. Iana and Tayanita, leading another team, would circle around to ensure that the outsiders could not escape. Nayeli, along with the main group, would approach directly, presenting a strong, unified front. The goal was to confront the men with certainty and precision, leaving no room for chaos or confusion. Every widow knew her role, and the clarity of their plan was a testament to the months of preparation, observation, and learning that had brought them to this moment. When the group was in position, Nayeli stepped forward, her voice carrying across the camp. "We know what you have done," she declared, her tone firm but controlled. "You set fire to our village to harm our people. You intended to intimidate and destroy. That ends today. We will not allow fear to dictate our lives, and we will ensure that justice is served." Her words echoed through the trees, strong and unwavering. The outsiders froze, startled by the presence and authority of the widows and their allies. For the first time, they realized that their actions would not go unchallenged. Iana and Tayanita moved strategically, ensuring that the outsiders could not flee or create confusion. The widows' allies took positions around the camp, making sure that escape was impossible without direct confrontation. The atmosphere was tense, but controlled, demonstrating that the widows' leadership was not only about courage, but about intelligence and careful planning. Every step was deliberate, and the outsiders quickly recognized that they were outmatched, not just in number but in strategy, unity, and resolve. The confrontation began with words first. Nayeli spoke again, offering the outsiders a chance to explain themselves, to admit their wrongdoing, and to take responsibility for their actions. Her approach was firm yet fair, emphasizing that justice was the goal, not revenge. The men hesitated, their confidence shaken by the determination and strength of the widows. It became clear that they had underestimated the power of courage, unity, and leadership, and the realization weighed heavily upon them. When it was evident that the outsiders would not voluntarily admit their wrongdoing, the widows and their allies moved carefully to secure the area. They confiscated the tools and materials that could be used to harm the village further, ensuring that the threat was neutralized. Tayanita's boldness kept the group safe from any sudden attacks, while Iana's energy inspired the allies to remain vigilant and focused. Sani's sharp observation skills ensured that no detail went unnoticed, and Nayeli's calm authority guided every action with precision. By the time the confrontation was over, the outsiders were disarmed, contained, and aware that their attempts to intimidate the village had failed. With the immediate threat neutralized, the widows turned their attention to the aftermath. They guided the outsiders to the village, ensuring that justice was carried out appropriately. The elders of the village and allied communities were consulted, and decisions were made that emphasized fairness, accountability, and restoration. The widows insisted on justice being done in a way that reflected the values of the community, teaching a lesson that cruelty and destruction would not be tolerated, and that resilience and unity could overcome any challenge. In the days that followed, the widows helped lead the rebuilding of the village. Families returned to their homes, repairing what they could, clearing debris, and planting new crops. The community worked together, inspired by the courage and leadership of the four women. Every action was a testament to resilience, courage, and the human spirit's ability to recover from tragedy. The widows continued to guide, support, and protect, ensuring that no one was left behind and that the village would emerge stronger than before. Children learned lessons of bravery, teamwork, and responsibility. The widows taught them that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. Elders and adults alike saw that leadership could come from unexpected places, and that strength was measured not only by physical power, but by wisdom, determination, and heart. The fire had been devastating, but it had also revealed the capacity for resilience and the power of community, guided by the unwavering leadership of the four widows. One evening, as the sun dipped below the mountains, casting a golden glow over the recovering village, the widows gathered together. They looked out over the homes, the fields, and the families that had survived and were rebuilding. Naomi spoke first, her voice quiet but filled with pride. "We have faced fear, chaos, and loss," she said. "We have survived fire, confronted danger, and ensured justice for our people. But most importantly, we have proven that courage, unity, and determination can overcome even the greatest trials." Her words were met with nods of agreement, smiles, and quiet tears of relief and joy. Ayana smiled, placing her hands on the shoulders of her children. "We have shown that even in the darkest times, hope and action can light the way," she said. Tayanita laughed softly, her voice carrying across the fields. "And we will continue to protect, to lead, and to inspire," she added. Sani, ever observant, noted the harmony of the village and the strength of the bonds they had built. "Our people are stronger now, and we are stronger together," she said quietly, yet with conviction that carried weight. Together, the four women reflected on everything they had endured, the fire, the hunt, the confrontation, and realized how much they had grown, both individually and as a unit. As weeks turned into months, the village gradually returned to life. Homes were rebuilt, crops were replanted, and laughter once again filled the streets. The widows continued to guide their community, teaching resilience, courage, and wisdom through both example and words. The memory of the fire and the threat it had exposed remained, but it no longer carried fear. It carried lessons, strength, and a sense of accomplishment. The four women had faced what many thought impossible and had emerged not only unbroken but triumphant. And so the four Apache widows, Naomi, Ayana, Sani, and Tayanita, stood together as symbols of resilience and courage. They had survived a devastating fire, faced a hidden enemy, and led their people to justice and renewal. Their village was safe once more, their families protected, and their community stronger than ever. Though scars remained, both on the land and in their hearts, they had proven that true strength comes from unity, wisdom, and the unwavering courage to face life's challenges head-on. They had turned tragedy into triumph, and their story would be remembered for generations as a testament to the power of resilience, hope, and courage.